Karen's shriek pierced the air like a fire alarm. I stood on my porch, arms crossed, watching as thick, brown sludge gushed from my garden, hose the same hose Karen had been stealing for weeks. The foul-smelling sewage splattered all over her pristine white sneakers, her perfectly pressed yoga pants, and the designer tote bag she always carried like a badge of honor. Her face twisted in horror. "What is wrong with you?" she screamed, jumping back as the disgusting liquid pooled around her feet. I smirked. "Oh, that? That's just payback." Her eyes widened in realization. The hose, the one she kept borrowing without asking, the one she thought I wouldn't notice disappearing every time she needed to water her stupid prize-winning roses. But I noticed, and I had a plan. Now, as Karen gagged and flailed, her perfectly manicured lawn turning into a swamp of sewage, I knew one thing for sure. This war was far from over. 2 months ago, I moved into the quiet suburban neighborhood of Willow Creek. Friendly neighbors, trimmed lawns, and of course the dreaded HOA. The Homeowners Association ruled with an iron fist, and Karen was their queen. Karen Livingston, HOA board member, neighborhood watch captain, and self-proclaimed keeper of the rules. She patrolled the streets like a general inspecting her troops, ready to pounce on anyone who dared leave their trash cans out too long or let their grass grow half an inch too high. At first, I tried to be nice. I waved. I smiled. I even baked her cookies. Big mistake. The next day, I got my first violation notice. Unauthorized garden hose left in driveway. Fine, $50. I blinked. My hose? The one I had used to wash my car? The one I put away after? I stormed over to Karen's house. "There must be a mistake," I said, holding up the notice. She peered down her nose at me. "OA rules state all hoses must be coiled and stored in a designated hose holder after use. Yours was draped over your fence for 5 minutes." She shrugged. "Rules are rules." That's when I knew Karen wasn't just enforcing rules. She was power hungry, and she had just made an enemy. The hose thefts begin. A week later, my hose went missing. I searched everywhere. Did I leave it out? No. I had learned my lesson. I stored it properly in the backyard. Then, one evening, I saw her, Karen, sneaking across my lawn in the dim twilight, her arms full of my hose. I froze. Was she stealing it? The next morning, it was back dirty, wet, and carelessly tossed near my spigot. This wasn't a one-time thing. Every few days, my hose would vanish, only to reappear later, used and abused. Karen was helping herself to my water, my property, like she owned it. I confronted her again. "Are you using my hose?" She didn't even flinch. "Don't be ridiculous. Why would I need your hose?" But I knew. And I was done playing nice. That's when I remembered my uncle's old sewage tank. He used it for his farm years ago. A disgusting, smelly thing full of well, you can guess. It had been sitting unused in my garage since I moved in. A wicked idea took root. If Karen wanted to use my hose so badly, I'd give her a hose she'd never forget. I spent the next few days setting it up. I hooked the hose to the sewage tank, hidden just out of sight. Then, I waited. And sure enough, like clockwork, Karen came creeping into my yard again. This time, I was ready. I flipped the switch. The hose jerked to life. And the rest? Well, you saw what happened. Karen stood there, trembling with rage, covered in filth. Then, her lips curled into a sneer. "You're done," she hissed. "I'll have you fined. I'll have you evicted." I laughed. "For what? You were the one trespassing again." Her face turned purple. That's when I saw it, the flicker of fear in her eyes. Because she knew I had proof. And this was only the beginning. Karen's threat hung in the air like the stench of sewage clinging to her clothes. "You'll regret this," she spat before storming off, leaving a trail of brown footprints down my driveway. I didn't move. My heart pounded, but my hands were steady. She thought she had power, but I had something better, proof. Because last night, I had set up a camera. After the third time my hose went missing, I knew I needed evidence. So, I bought a tiny security camera, the kind that looks like a rock, and placed it near my spigot. And last night, it caught everything. Karen in her ridiculous sun hat, sneaking into my yard at dusk. Karen yanking my hose from its holder with zero shame. Karen dragging it across the lawn like she owned the place. The footage was gold. But I wasn't going to use it. Yet. First, I wanted to see how far she'd go. The HOA strikes back. 2 days later, the notice arrived. Violation. Unsanitary property conditions. Fine. $200. I laughed out loud. Unsanitary? Because of her sewage-covered shoes? Then came the second notice. Violation. Harassment of Ho board member. Fine. $500. My jaw dropped. Harassment? And then the final blow. A certified letter from the HOA. Emergency hearing. Possible eviction proceedings. Karen wasn't playing. She was coming for my house. I stormed into the HOA office, ready to fight. But when I got there, something was off. The board members avoided my eyes. The secretary whispered behind her hand. And Karen? She wasn't there. Miss Livingston has recused herself from this matter, the HOA president said stiffly. Recused herself? Since when did Karen ever back down? Then it hit me. She knew about the camera, and she was scared. That night, I got a knock on my door. It wasn't Karen. It was Mr. Henderson, the elderly man next door. "You've got to stop this feud," he whispered. "Karen's not who you think she is." I frowned. "What do you mean?" He glanced over his shoulder, then leaned in. "She's done this before. To the last family who lived here. They moved because of her." My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about a hose. This was a pattern. And I was next. Mr. Henderson pressed a crumpled folder into my hands. "Take it. Read it. But be careful." I opened it. Inside were photos, documents, even police reports. All about Karen. And what I saw made my stomach drop. Because if this was true, Karen wasn't just a bully. She was a criminal. I sat at my kitchen table, the dim overhead light flickering as I spread out the contents of the folder Mr. Henderson had given me. My fingers trembled slightly as I picked up the first document, a faded newspaper clipping from 5 years ago. The headline screamed, "Local HOA board member accused of fraud, harassment in Willow Creek scandal." My pulse quickened. There she was, Karen Livingston's mug, in a grainy black and white photo, standing next to a couple who looked exhausted, their faces etched with defeat. The article detailed how Karen had systematically driven them out of their home with false violations, relentless fines, and even sabotage. But that wasn't the worst part. At the bottom of the folder was a police report. Complaint filed, vandalism, theft, and psychological harassment. The couple had accused Karen of siphoning gas from their car, cutting their internet lines, poisoning their dog. I nearly dropped the paper. Poisoning their dog? The case was dropped due to lack of evidence. But the notes scribbled in the margins told a different story. Witnesses afraid to testify. Members covering for her. Victims moved out of state. I swallowed hard. This wasn't just about a stolen hose anymore. Karen was dangerous, and I had just declared war on her. The next morning, I went straight to Mr. Henderson's house. He answered before I even knocked, like he'd been waiting for me. His wrinkled face was grim as he ushered me inside, glancing nervously out the window. "You read it," he said, more statement than question. I nodded. "Why didn't anyone stop her?" He sighed, sinking into his armchair. "Fear. She's got dirt on everyone. Late fees? She waives them if you cooperate. Violations? She forgets to file them if you stay on her good side." I clenched my fists. "So the whole neighborhood is letting her get away with this?" "It's not that simple," he said. "The last family that fought back, their house was egged, tires slashed. Then one night, their garage mysteriously caught fire. A chill ran down my spine. And the police?" He gave me a tired look. "No proof it was her. She's careful." I leaned forward. "But you kept records." A small, grim smile tugged at his lips. "Someone had to." I was halfway home when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Drop it, or you'll regret it." I froze. Then another message popped up, a photo of my car, taken minutes ago. My stomach twisted. She was watching me, right now. I whipped around, scanning the street. No one in sight. But then movement. A curtain twitched in Karen's upstairs window. A shadow. A glint of something metallic. Binoculars. I forced myself to walk calmly inside, heart hammering. This wasn't just intimidation. This was a warning. I wasn't going to wait for her to strike first. If Karen played dirty, so would I. I pulled up the hose footage on my laptop and edited it into a clear, damning clip. Karen Livingston, HOA board member, stealing from a neighbor. Then, I drafted an email. Subject: urgent hoe, concern, evidence of theft, harassment. I attached the video, the police reports, and the newspaper clippings. My finger hovered over the send button. The recipients? Every homeowner in Willow Creek, the local news station, the HOA's corporate office, the ones above Karen's head. I took a deep breath. This would either end her Ragnar, make her come at me twice as hard. I clicked send. Within minutes, my phone blew up. Texts, calls, neighbors I'd never spoken to messaging me. Is this real? We had no idea. She did the same thing to us. Then the best one. From OA corporate office. This matter is under immediate investigation. Ms. Livingston has been suspended pending review. I grinned. Got her. But my victory was short-lived. Because at exactly 11:47 p.m., my doorbell rang. I peered through the peephole. No one there. Then I looked down. A single, ominous envelope on my doorstep. Handwritten in familiar, looping cursive. You shouldn't have done that. Inside, a photo of me, asleep in my living room, taken through my window, and beneath it, scrawled in red ink. Game on. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the house, every rustle of leaves outside made me jump. By morning, I had a plan. If Karen wanted a war, I'd give her one. But not the way she expected. Because I knew her weakness now. Her real fear wasn't fines or suspensions. It was exposure. And I had one last piece of evidence. Something worse than theft. Something that would bury her for good. But to get it, I'd have to break into her house. The clock ticked past 2 a.m. as I crouched behind the bushes outside Karen's house, my pulse hammering so loudly I was sure the entire neighborhood could hear it. Breaking and entering wasn't exactly in my moral playbook, but after the photo she left on my doorstep of me sleeping, I was past playing nice. I had to know what else she was hiding, and I had a hunch it was worse than just harassment. Karen's house was eerily still, every window dark except for a faint blue glow from the basement. Security was laughablino cameras, no alarms, just a flimsy backdoor lock that gave way after a few seconds of jimmying with a credit card. Too easy. I slipped inside, the smell of lemon-scented cleaner hitting me immediately. The place was obsessively neat, a single cushion out of place, floors so polished I could see my nervous reflection in them. But I wasn't here to admire her housekeeping. I needed proof. I crept toward the basement stairs, my breath shallow. The blue glow grew brighter, accompanied by the faint hum of electronics. Then I saw it. Karen's basement wasn't a basement. It was a command center. An entire wall was covered in surveillance. Screens live feeds of at least a dozen houses in the neighborhood, including mine. My stomach lurched. She'd been watching everyone. But that wasn't the worst part. On a desk beneath the screens sat a thick leather binder labeled Whole Control, Operation Silence. I flipped it open. Inside were dossiers on every homeowner in Willow Creek personal details, financial records, even blackmail material. Mr. Henderson's late wife's medical bills, marked Leverage Property Dispute. The miller's son's juvenile record, forced compliance, noise complaints. My own file with a sticky note. Hose incident, escalate. My hands shook. This wasn't just harassment. This was organized manipulation. Then, beneath the files, I spotted a flash drive labeled Backup, Do Not Touch. I plugged it into my phone. The screen filled with folders, violation fabrications, property sabotage, legal threats. But one folder stood out. The Harrisons, the couple from the news clipping. I opened it, and my blood turned to ice. Photos of their burned-down garage. A typed document titled Gas Line Tampering, Instructions. And at the bottom, an audio file dated the night they moved out. I hit play. Karen's voice cold and smug. Let this be a lesson. Cross me, and next time it won't just be your garage. A man's voice trembling. We're leaving. Just leave us alone. Karen, smart choice. And remember, if you ever talk, I'll make sure your new neighbors know exactly what kind of people you are. The recording cut off. I stood there, numb. Karen didn't just bully people. She destroyed them. A floorboard creaked upstairs. I froze. Footsteps. Then the unmistakable sound of the back door opening. Karen was home. I yanked out the flash drive, shoved it into my pocket, and ducked behind a filing cabinet just as the basement light flicked on. Karen's heels clicked down the stairs. She was humming, like she hadn't just threatened to burn down someone's life. I held my breath as she walked straight to the binder, flipping it open. Then she paused. Did she notice it was moved? A slow, terrifying smile spread across her face. "I know you're here," she sang. My heart stopped. She turned, her eyes scanning the shadows. "You shouldn't have come." I bolted. Up the stairs, through the kitchen, out the back door, Karen's scream of rage echoing behind me. "I'll ruin you." I didn't stop running until I reached my house, slamming the door and locking it behind me. I had the flash drive. I had proof, but Karen knew I had it. And now, she had nothing left to lose. I didn't have much time. I called the police. They said they'd look into it. I emailed the news station. No reply yet. Then at 4:37 Amy phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You took something from me." Another buzz. A photo of my house with one horrifying difference. A shadowy figure standing on my porch, holding a gas can. The final message. "Say goodbye." The gas can in the photo glinted under my porch light, its metal surface reflecting the pale yellow glow in a way that made it look almost like it was smiling at me. My fingers trembled as I zoomed in on the image, noticing details that turned my blood to ice. The fresh scratches along the can's side, the distinctive red cap that matched the ones at our local hardware store. The faint shadow of a hand gripping it so tightly the knuckles showed white, even in the dark. Then I saw it. On the porch step, barely visible in the corner of the photo, was a single gardening glove. The same neon pink gardening glove I'd seen Karen wearing just yesterday, when she was pruning her rose bushes while glaring at my house. The smell hit me before I even reached the front door. That acrid, nose-burning stench of gasoline so strong it made my eyes water. My bare feet slapped against the hardwood floors as I raced to the kitchen, grabbing every towel I could find and soaking them in water. Some distant part of my brain remembered a fire safety video saying, "You should never open a door if you suspect fire on the other side," but I could already hear the telltale crackling of flames eating wood. I pressed my hand against the front door. Warm, not scorching yet. Taking a deep breath, immediately regretting it as the gasoline fumes burned my lungs, I peered through the peephole. The distorted fisheye view showed dancing orange light reflecting off my porch swing. Then I saw them, not one, but 3 separate pools of fire spreading rapidly across my wooden deck, their flames intertwining like some demonic ballet. The fire department would never get here in time. That's when my survival instinct kicked in. Years of watching disaster movies and reading apocalyptic novels suddenly became very practical knowledge. I raced to the basement, nearly tripping down the stairs in my panic, and grabbed the industrial fire extinguisher I'd bought after first moving in, and which Karen had tried to fine me for because it was unsightly on my porch. The extinguisher felt heavier than I remembered as I hauled it back upstairs. My arms shook with adrenaline as I pulled the pin, aimed at the base of the flames visible through my window, and squeezed the lever. White powder exploded outward, coating my window in a thick layer that made it impossible to see. I had to go outside. The moment I opened the front door, heat blasted me in the face like opening an oven door. The fire had already spread across half the porch, the wooden railing now serving as a perfect conduit for the flames to race toward my roof. I backed up, raised the extinguisher again, and let loose another blast of retardant. That's when I heard the scream. Not a scream of pain or fear, a scream of pure, unadulterated rage. Karen stood at the edge of my lawn, her face contorted in fury, her designer sweater smudged with soot. In one hand, she held another gas can, in the other, a lighter. "You ruined everything," she shrieked, her voice breaking with hysteria. "I built this neighborhood. I made it perfect. And you with your stupid hose and your stupid smile and your stupid—" Her tirade was cut off by the sound of approaching sirens. The flashing red and blue lights reflected in her wild eyes as she looked back and forth between me and the arriving police cars. For one terrifying moment, I thought she might try to light the second can right there. Instead, she did something even more shocking. She started crying. Not delicate, pretty tears, but great heaving sobs that made her entire body shake. The gas can slipped from her fingers, landing with a dull thud on my lawn. The lighter followed, bouncing once before coming to rest near my scorched petunias. Officer Grady was the first out of his car, his hand resting on his holstered weapon as he took in the scene. The burning porch, the hysterical woman, me standing there covered in fire retardant powder, looking like a half-baked ghost. "What in God's name is going on here?" he bellowed. That's when the dam broke. All the fear, the anger, the months of harassment came pouring out of me in a torrent of words. I told him about the flash drive, about the surveillance room, about the years of blackmail and intimidation. As I spoke, more neighbors emerged from their homes, drawn by the commotion. Mr. Henderson was the first to speak up. "It's true," he said, his voice stronger than I'd ever heard it. "She's been terrorizing this neighborhood for years." One by one, others joined in. The Millers confessed how Karen had threatened to reveal their son's juvenile record unless they voted her way on HOA matters. Ms. Alvarez from down the street tearfully admitted Karen had been charging her fees to ignore the fact her fence was 6 inches too tall. The evidence was overwhelming. As the firefighters worked to fully extinguish my porch, which, despite the damage, was structurally sound, the police escorted a now eerily silent Karen to a squad car. She didn't resist, didn't speak, just stared straight ahead with empty eyes. In the days that followed, the full extent of Karen's crimes came to light. The district attorney's office took special interest in the case, assigning 2 prosecutors to handle what they called one of the most egregious cases of neighborhood harassment we've ever seen. The media dubbed her the HOA Horror. And for weeks, our quiet street was overrun with news vans and reporters. I gave exactly 1 interview, with my lawyer present, before deciding I'd had enough of the spotlight. The HOA was completely restructured, with Mr. Henderson taking over as interim president until proper elections could be held. The first thing he did? Repeal 18 of Karen's most ridiculous bylaws, including the infamous hose storage rule that had started this whole mess. As for me, I took some time off work to repair my porch. It's nicer now than it was before, wider, with a little bench where neighbors often stop to chat. Sometimes, when the weather's nice, I'll sit out there with Mr. Henderson and share a beer while we watch the sunset. And my hose? It's still there, coiled neatly in its holder where it belongs. But now, when I use it to water my flowers, I can't help but smile at how something so simple became the instrument of justice for an entire neighborhood. As for Karen, last I heard, she took a plea deal, 5 years in prison, followed by 3 years probation. The judge also issued a restraining order, keeping her a full mile away from our neighborhood upon her release. Funny enough, I heard through the grapevine that her new living situation has some pretty strict rules about what you can and can't do. Something about prison regulations. I'd say she's finally found an HOA. Even she can't bully.